So one of the first things that you want to do when you get your interactive notebook and you're thinking through what to do for the year is to think how you are teaching, what approach you're using. Some of you are tied really closely to a textbook. Some of you are basing your units off of IPAs. Some of you are perhaps TPRS teachers. So I'll show you what I do, and then that might help you think through how to organize yours. My first section is anything organizational, key things that we need to keep track of for the whole year. The second section, because I do a lot of storytelling, is los cuentos, and that is where we put all of our stories and target structures. And as you can see here, I would like to come in later and perhaps put something else on here, but all it is a paper cut in half and glued to form a tab, and these have been on an airplane from North America to South America. So they look a little rough, but you know, they still work, and that's the main thing, right, is that you can find stuff. So there I have storytelling pages. Then I have a small vocabulary section for miscellaneous vocabulary, a grammar section for when we're ready to take notes on grammar, and then I have a section for songs. And that's how I organize it all. If you are perhaps basing your units more around IPAs, I think it might be cool to take a piece of paper, maybe, and do it like Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and so on, and so they can easily find each unit. And then if I were more on top of things, I would have these, but you could do even your can-dos to kind of check off and set your goals for each unit and have a tab for that at the beginning of each section. If you're doing maybe following a textbook, then you might want to have each section follow like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, or you could still kind of do the same thing of by theme like I've done. The first part of my organizational section is the table of contents, and as you can see here, I go ahead and plan out some of the parts that we are going to get to and that I know we'll do. So here we have like the proficiency statements and proficiency charts. I know we have our bell ringers in there. I use a lot of Martina Beck's units, and I know which ones we'll at least get through to begin with. And so I go ahead and type those in, and then I leave space to write in by hand all the other parts that we're going to do throughout the year. So as you can see, I haven't written in many of them. One of the tricks that I like, and my numbers are too small here, I need to reprint that one, but one of the tricks that I like for doing interactive notebooks is to just number the right-hand side. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, it just goes 1, 2, 3. And then here in the table of contents, you know, you can put the left page here and the right page here, and it just saves a lot of the what can be a painful part of class, numbering all the pages. On these two pages, pages 2 and 3, I typed up the ACTFL proficiency can-do statements. So this gives our students kind of an overview of novice low, novice mid, novice high, intermediate, and then some specific, oh, I printed upside down. And then some of the specific targets and can-do statements from each of those. And then here, we just have the goal for Spanish 1 is, novice high right here, and then A+ would be intermediate low. And that's just so they have a reference of where their grades are coming from. Oh, and then this is one of my favorite parts. This is where I put my bell ringers. So with like the Martina Beck's units, she'll often have a slide that they have to just answer a question to or correct something. And I tell them, usually it should fit into one block. Sometimes if they need to take 2, that's fine. But that is a very easy way for me to check. If I just want to check bell ringers, every 2 weeks or so, I just glance at it, make sure that they've done it, and that's their grade. And it's just there, sitting there for the whole year, and it's so easy. Here I have this section for our stories that we do. So if you are teaching maybe more traditionally, or through IPAs, this will look really different. But if you are teaching, I know a lot of people have asked how you can use an interactive notebook if you're doing maybe the SOMOS curriculum or using more TPRS techniques. My system is just to have 2 pages per story. So that would be a story section, this right here, and this right here would be another story. You could take more, for sure, but I think 2 pages is a good starting point at least. So as you can see with the Martina Beck's units here, so I have them write their 3 target structures right here, and then they have to illustrate it. If they need to write in English, I'm not a stickler, but I like them to write in images if they can. And then if they need any additional notes or anything, then that goes under it, right there, okay? So we have our 3 targets. You could certainly just write them on the page. You don't have to do a foldable for that. I kind of leave this just for any notes that we might make on the story or the structures for that week. And then it's really easy just to glue in the story right here. So if you have a story that fits into more than half a page, I just do it like this. And then any story work might go over here. There's different ways that you can do that. A lot of stories just fit into one. And I'm trying not to show these too much because they are not my work. A lot of these are Martina Beck's stories, so I want to respect what she's done. And then there's questions on the back. That's another way you could do it. And you could also just, if you have one that takes up this, you could do front and back and leave space here to sketch or make notes, things like that. This really should be a separate section, but I just have as part of my stories the work that we do with novels. So one of my favorite Spanish novels is Agentes Secretos, and then we also do Piratas del Caribe. And so I do a little booklet just to have them take notes on each chapter. That's like, so this whole thing is like a little summary of it. But interactive notebooks make working with novels, for example, really easy because you don't even have to have a foldable. It can be something as simple as this, where you just glue in a strip of keywords or questions, and then they do some of the work over here. That's super easy to create and to put in the notebook. And you can have them do, sometimes I have them take quotes from the story and then comment on the quotes. Or sometimes I might have them do a story map like this one and then comment on it. That's another just story strip that I did to have them work through the novel. Here we have my vocabulary section, and a lot of my vocab really comes from when we're doing stories, so it would look more like, you saw that one. So something more like this, and that's how I would do their vocabulary. But then of course sometimes you have things more like numbers or colors or days of the week that kind of just need to be listed and kept as a reference. So I do have some vocabulary here, and interactive notebooks do make it really easy to do image-based vocabulary instead of just English to Spanish translation. The next section is grammar, and interactive notebooks really do help when you're trying to just organize and make something visually make sense. So I don't get to my grammar section until about halfway through the year probably, when they're kind of have familiarized and internalized some of these things, and then we come back to work on the accuracy part of it a little bit later. But I find that when you do have good organizers for your interactive notebooks, then you often spend way less time explaining or doing practice sheets or drills or anything like that, because it's just laid out really clearly. So I do my verbs in a little foldable like this, and it kind of makes sense of those things that are hard to wrap your mind around. Sometimes just the act of being able to lift up something in 3 parts helps them remember, oh, there were 3 different kinds of verbs, and you kind of keeps you from having to say it because it's just there and it's obvious. So there are some more indirect object pronouns, like that. And my last section here are las canciones. And we do a ton of songs in class, so I like to just have a whole section where you just write out the lyrics. You can leave space for them to work. Sometimes the lyrics take up the whole part. If you glue it here, then you can do the work here, or you could leave it, so only the top part is glued down and you can lift it up and do the work underneath. It's a really easy way just to keep everything, if you have it done horizontally on paper. If you're using these small notebooks, if you do it horizontally, you can just cut it in half.